days in, you don't get that land by August, what do you think people here are going to do?
If it is that, otherwise we can organize it. We young generation and go to those farmers and starting squattering there.
Like most Chona peasants, Tendai Masiwa is a loyal member of Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF party. Such a public threat must have had the party's tacit approval. And certainly it strengthens the government's hand.
Either the government does it, or else the peasants will do it. And when they do it on their own, having taken the law into their hands, anything could happen. It could create a lot of violence.
I mean, surely they're right when they say that it is not politically acceptable to continue to have 4,500 mostly white commercial farmers owning more than 50% of Zimbabwe when you've got 9 million or 12 million on the poverty line.
To start with, yes, sure, there's injustice. I don't deny that. There's also, and that's why I support the need for a properly structured, organized, funded land resettlement and reform program, agrarian reform. Nobody's opposed to that. It's in the interest of the country.
The problem, as Jim Sinclair sees it, is that the current program is anything but structured, organized and funded.
You see, the problem that we have is that this government's treating this issue as a political issue. It's not a political issue. We're talking about economics, exports, feeding people, employing people, and this piggery is a good example.
Because he owns the land, Sinclair has been able to borrow funds to finance improvements like his piggery. But the peasants won't have private title, so the banks won't lend them money. The World Bank, the IMF and major donors like the European Union are just as concerned as Jim Sinclair. They're worried that the crash redistribution scheme will lead to a dramatic decline in food production and the loss of vital export income.
Well, unfortunately, we have a country to run, and we have to run it. If we are faced with a problem, we are not going to sit and not solve the problem just because the international community may not understand us.
There's another group of people who don't understand. The 120,000 people who are employed on the threatened farms. The displaced Shona were reluctant to work on their own land for the white man's wages. So most of Zimbabwe's farm labourers came from Malawi and Mozambique 30 or 40 years ago. They're far from well paid, but Jim Sinclair's workers have a house, a maize plot, a living wage, and nowhere else to go. And these days, even young, well-educated Zimbabweans like Gift, the foreman of the piggery, have been forced to leave the towns and find work on the commercial farms. Has anybody come and told you what's going to happen to you?
No. No, so far. The government is just silent so far.
So, if this goes ahead, you lose your house.
Certainly, I'm going to.
You lose your income.
Yes.
What would happen to you if you went to Harare?
Well, I'm going to struggle then. That's what it means.
If the farm workers are forced to join the job queues, life in the bleak suburbs of Harare will get even tougher than it already is. More than half Zimbabwe's citizens have no work. And with interest rates at 35%, there are few investors rushing to create new ones. Inflation is over 20%. The Zimbabwe dollar has crashed, and living standards have plummeted. It's in the cities and not on the land that the real time bombs are ticking. There's already been one explosion. For 3 days in January, rioters stormed through Harare and its suburbs, looting and burning. The police lost control of the streets and shopping malls. The riots were set off by huge tax hikes and a jump in the price of basic staples like maize meal and cooking oil. In the streets, they pinned the blame squarely on a corrupt and incompetent government.
We want a new government.
For the first time since independence, Robert Mugabe was forced to send the army into his own Shona heartland. But he hasn't accepted the blame for the price rises. Instead, his government has tried to play the race card again.
We have 4 big millers in this country. They increase their prices one day with the same percentage. And as you know, our economy is owned about 95% by the white community in this country or by foreign company owners. So when we talk of the white community, that's precisely what we mean.
So it is, in a sense, a white conspiracy.
The white farmers and some of the white producers or businessmen will be very happy that we are in a fix.
On the Sunday after the riots in the beer halls of the black suburbs, we found the government's attempt to blame the whites got short shrift.
It was not even an opposition party, it was not the white people who caused that, whoever is known. It's just it's all we people who thought of that. We wanted to show the government that we dislike that what they did.
We can't say it's a white man because things can go up, and just like you have your own company, and then the government says okay, we raise the taxes. How much you pay for the company? For you to get that money, it means you have to raise your things as well. So we cannot say we blame the government for that.
City people realize that without the approval and investment of the rich white world, they're doomed to a life of joblessness and poverty. But out in the rural areas where ZANU still has a powerful hold, it's land that's always been the linchpin. They've been patient here a long time, but times are hard and a desperate government is looking for a scapegoat. Look at that.
No, that looks great, darling. Super. Well done. Right.
Anne and James Sinclair are not racists. Mr. Mugabe says you should all go home.
Got anywhere to go.
This is home.
Yeah.
It's the only home I've ever known. I don't know any other. I've got a Zimbabwean passport. There's the only passport I can get. And that's it.
It may not be good economics to hand flourishing farmland back to the peasants, but even in one-party states, it's sometimes politics that comes first.